Welcome to Lunch Break, everybody. We're at our monthly Pastors Roundtable this afternoon. So thank you guys so much for being here. Ryan, Josh, and Stacy, our pastoral staff here at Northwest. Again, really appreciate you guys jumping in on lunch break and getting to have this conversation with y'all. And again, what we try to do in these Pastors Roundtables in particular is just have a conversation. We talk about certain topics. I want to get their perspectives as other pastors, people who are actively engaged in ministry in different places, different levels. And so we want to just kind of dialogue about some stuff, shoot the breeze a little bit, get your opinions and perspectives. Because I know, like, I've got all my own opinions, I got all my own thoughts, but I love hearing what everybody else thinks too. And so today we're going to talk about something I brought up last week on lunch break, and I want to talk about busyness. And about being busy and just kind of this feeling that I have and that I sense from others. And we got some great feedback from y'all. So thank you for that. Thank you for those comments. Talked to a couple people even on Sunday. They said, "Oh man, yeah, I saw that on lunch break. And here's what I'm thinking." Keep it flowing. Keep it coming. The more thoughts you have, if you've got some opinions about what any of us share today, put that in the comments. Reach out to us, shoot us some text messages, emails, all that kind of stuff. We'd love to know what you're thinking too. But what we talked about last week, I just kind of introduced this thought, that this feeling that I have that so many people just kind of like at a baseline are tired. They're just like this low grade exhaustion, this baseline tiredness because of, I think, busyness or this feeling of being busy. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I haven't put my finger on it yet, but I just wanted to talk about, what do you guys think? Are we busier now than we used to be? Do you feel what I'm feeling? Like, do you see that in the people that you're ministering to? Just kind of open discussion. What are your thoughts? Give it to me.
What if it's not that we're like busier than we were before, that our time is still filled the same way, there just is less time for rest? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, there's still the same 24 hours.
yeah,
in a day,
everyone
right?
still works their job. Everybody
evening to
still has
morning
the
was the
family
first thing,
commitments,
right.
the social commitments, the church commitments, all of that. For the most part, it's the same. It's then, is your rest actually restful, or are you spending your time inside of that rest doing things that are not real, small gratification, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I doom scroll on my phone for the 3 hours of rest that I have before I go do the next thing, did I actually rest? Did I get the time that I needed to get?
Interesting.
Or was I like small shovel digging instead of large shovel?
Okay, so I'm going to dig in on that a little bit. When you were a kid, and when you guys were all kids, were you as active as kids are now? Did you have as many activities? Were you going as much as? Because that's some of what I hear from people is, "Oh man, yeah, I'm so busy. Like, I got to run my kid here, and my kid's doing this sport and doing." But then I wonder, is that really any different, or is it like what Ryan's saying? We're not actually resting when we have downtime.
Yeah, I think it's probably that, because I definitely, growing up, was a busy kid. My parents, when they had kids, they said, okay, all of our kids are going to have to learn to play the piano, learn to swim, and do martial arts at some point. And so all of us growing up, we played instruments, not to varying degrees of ability. We did martial arts for a long, long time. I got into theater when I was in middle school, so I had a very, very packed schedule throughout, especially my middle and high school years. But I definitely think that Ryan makes a good point that the time spent, I think, in between activities for people now is usually just kind of funneled into using a phone and being on social media and kind of taking in sort of short form content, whether it's like news articles or any of that kind of stuff. And I think that sort of gives you less time to process what's happening and rest and sort of be in quiet. And that's definitely something that I've noticed in myself, even as, I mean, obviously with having an adult schedule and working full time and all those kinds of responsibilities, that it feels like there's more for me now. But I find that whereas, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I would have silence just sort of built into the rhythms of my life. And now it feels like it's something that I have to be very intentional about cultivating, because it's so easy for it to just slip away into, answering text messages or reading news articles or watching video content online or any of those kinds of things. It's easy to fill that day in a way that took more intentionality to do, I think, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I think we trained ourselves to be busy constantly. So when we do sit down to rest, I can't watch a TV show without feeling like, oh, I need to pull out my phone. I need to answer this. I
IMDb,
shouldn't
who's
be
that
sitting here.
actor?
Exactly, all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah.
Thank you, Amazon Prime, for giving me that information half the time. Makes my life so much easier. Just pause it for a second and be like, that's Billy Bob Thornton. Got it. All right, move on.
That's right. He was in. Okay. Yeah.
But all the time, if that's what we're doing, then we're not getting good rest. And you're right. I think that we had avenues of that throughout our lives where there wasn't a phone, there wasn't a computer, there wasn't an email to always check, or I had to physically get up from the couch to go do that. So by doing that, my intention is now very much on the one thing and not the 30 things that I can do while sitting right here in this chair. So with that, it's almost like a choice overload paralysis that can even happen where now I'm so worried that I'm not maximizing this time that there's like a shame aspect to, I didn't answer that
Wasted.
email. This is a waste. Like if I'm watching this show, or even if it's good content, like, oof, I'm not doing the thing that I could be doing, or there's more that could happen. Productivity is the goal, not rest.
What about you, Stacey? You and we're probably a little generation removed from these guys. Like were you as busy in your day? Like, because I've got thoughts for me, but
Well, commuting in this area, I've heard people over the last, 15, 16 years since we've been here, people have talked about how the area has changed. I know when growing up, we could just drive to things we need to drive to. It wasn't until later on in life when I joined the military and went out west or went to bigger cities where I experienced where drive times, in the commute, and I can imagine, from out of LA, that's
LA.
always been the experience out there forever. And so, commuting is one of those things that people that come to this area that haven't experienced that's one thing that's a drag. But you bring up a good point about how we spend our time. When we're splitting our time between all these things that we want to do, and it's over, every day we're splitting our time between those things that are important to us and the things that we have to do. It feels like, you never have time to rest and do those things. So growing up, we just worked. We worked. We went and did things. I'm a term that remember the term latchkey kid.
oh yeah.
And so, we were on autopilot. And so when we came, we had things that we needed to do by the time parents came back home and things like that. So my mind is set towards where it's hard for me to dial down. My problem is when I sit down for a show, unless it's a sporting event, when I sit down for a show or a game, if I try to do 2 games, I can't do it because it feels like I'm wasting time. It's almost wrong for me to sit down and relax for a second. And so I have to get up and find something else to do because it feels like I'm wasting time because that was ingrained culturally in my psyche.
Oh yeah.
So, when you look at those kind of things, being intentional, like grandma, she's like, no, Saturdays is for this. There is nothing else on your schedule. I don't care if they put you off the team. I don't care if you lose your job. Saturday is for this. And all day we will do this. Nothing else, And so we don't have, it doesn't seem like in families, when we sit and do like spiritual guidance or something like that, cut out a day. I don't care what you got to sacrifice and make that a spiritual rhythm, or make that a spiritual, to practice spiritual discipline and fun, because if you don't, it gets murky when you try to mix things together.
So there's a theory. It's not really a theory. I mean, it's just kind of it's a truth of the universe, right? There's the word recreation.
Oh yeah.
It's a compound. Well, it's not a compound word. It's again, create, recreate. So recreation, fun,
Yes.
play, is actually you're recreating who you are, who God has created you originally to be. There's a theology of recreation or recreation. I'm trying to use that as to say recreation instead of recreation. Because recreation's like, oh yeah, I went to the rec center and I goofed off for 3 hours, whatever. And so, but it's really it's intentional and it's restorative and it's spiritual to recreate our heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
Yeah, I wonder if part of why we don't do that is because we live in a culture now that is so entertainment saturated. And so, I mean, I was thinking about this with Ryan, your point about, watching TV and feeling like, well, I need to be doing something productive while I'm watching TV. because it feels like, every news article is structured in such a way to keep you focused and entertained on it. Short form video content is designed to keep you entertained. And so it seems like everything that, advertising and marketing and stuff does is geared toward kind of fascinating you and entertaining you. And so we end up in this environment where I feel like, maybe on the opposite side of what Stacy's saying, that it's like, well, I'm, doing something entertaining. I better be doing something productive on the side. I feel that, but I also feel like, well, I'm doing something productive. I better turn on a podcast, or I better have something that I'm listening
in the
to.
background.
Yeah.
So do you think we're sacrificing quality and productivity for the sake of entertainment? Do you think that's like, is that why Taylor Swift songs are terrible because she's cranking them out so fast? Like,
that's
or
a whole
whatever.
different argument.
It comes out of that
Music today is
that term there's that term multitasking. You're really not multitasking. You're splitting
you're giving
focuses
only a little bit
with
to
all
each.
these micro tasks, and so you're not really giving full devotion to it. I understand the idea, and yes, it's possible because we do it.
Sure.
However, the quality of what you're doing, you're never satisfied. And so when you continue in it, are you ever really satisfied with what you're doing? Because you're not putting your full focus and intent in it.
So is it, again, I'm just like, now I'm kind of veering off script a little bit here, but so is it that we are tired and anxious, or we're not satisfied?
Yes.
Like, is it a question of satisfaction and fulfillment, or is it a question of busyness and tiredness?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I instead wrap them all together and say that it's intentionality. It's if my intention is to go into this for restful time, and yet I then decide, because of either, again, the guilt or that goal-oriented mindfulness, that I need to do something else while resting, then I've lost the intention, and now I will never feel like I actually fully got it because I multitasked it, and I did a little bit in each. So a little bit in this bucket of getting a goal that I wanted to finish, being productive, having rest, having a social life, like all of those things, I only filled up my cup a tiny bit.
So we never finish the task.
Yeah,
Like,
because
all the
I
open loops.
I put only one thing down and said that's going to be my intention, but then I threw 3 more down with it and said, now I'm going to do a little bit of all.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're talking a lot of negative. A lot of like this. Is there anything good about the productivity and the busyness and the entertainment? Has it brought good to culture, or is it all just bad?
Well, I mean, I find on the negative end, yes, you can have just total saturation of particularly information. On the other hand, we have access to more information at our fingertips than we have ever had in human history.
Unbelievable.
And that means being able to know stuff that we didn't know before, and being able to look up stuff that we're curious about in a way that, when I was in, say, middle school and you had paper dictionaries and you didn't know what a word meant or something like that, I mean, you had to wait and then go be intentional about that later on. And it cultivated a skill in us of remembering that stuff and going and kind of seeking out that information.
Yeah.
But it isn't a bad thing that we have access to that stuff. It's only a bad thing to the extent that we lean on the ease of access to information and then become dumber as a result, right? Like, we lose the ability to navigate our way around without a map because we have access to Google Maps so easily, right?
I still don't know. I've lived in this town for 12 years, and I still don't know how to get around. I don't know how to. I can barely get to Marietta. I mean, it's sad. It's really sad because of Google Maps. That's all I ever use, and so I don't remember how to get places. I did it the other day. I was like, okay, I've got to go to the library. How do I get there?
Yeah.
Okay. And I try to be like, hey, Hannah, bring that up on Google Maps so we can see the traffic.
Yeah.
Wasn't actually the traffic. I mean, that was partially true, but it was really, I'm not exactly sure if I turn left or right at that. So bring it up, because it is. It's what it is.
And that's one of the things that makes me kind of apprehensive about AI and ChatGPT and kind of the sort of next stage of technological advancement where it goes
Skynet's
from,
coming, baby.
Well, it goes from
Dun-dun.
it goes from suddenly, in kind of the internet age, we all have access to information.
Right.
And so we stop retaining information because we have easy access to
Right.
it. And so now I think the risk of AI, even while I mean it's massively beneficial and it saves you on
Sure.
so much like busy work and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But if we lean on it the same way that we lean on the internet to provide us with information, then now we lean on AI to provide us with intelligence, then what does that end up doing if it makes it so that people never have to actually use their rational thinking abilities?
Yeah.
Because well, AI can write me emails for me. AI can do my sermon planning for me. Like it can do those things that
Sure.
before required you to use the thinking powers God's given you.
So on the positive side, because we're on the positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna keep veering left and right.
We're
positive.
Crash and burn.
No,
it's true.
Because you can feed the beast with a 24-hour news cycle. You
Absolutely.
know, that's where a lot of guys that I talk to get sucked into. The access to information. But I was just hearing just yesterday about this school. I think it's called Axum or something like that, where this school only does 2 hours of instruction,
all AI.
But then the other 4 hours they do play. They go out and ride bikes. They do, and it's still during school structured time. So they do it together, but they just use the AI to teach, and so they get to what they need to get to, faster. And it's a psychological thing. So it's not a human voice. It is a human voice, but it's a kind of automated voice that teaches you. So now you have this. Less inflection. See how I got so high just there. And you keep everybody. I told you I get excited, man.
It's an angry Tennessee.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm down on the back, three notches, right?
notches.
And so, but it teaches and gives instructions in a different way. But
Yeah.
the rest of the time is social. And so even in that, what we're talking about, like school structured plays, you have school systems that's gotten rid of that altogether.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so we need that. That's discovery in that,
Yep.
socially, relationally, but also problem solving. How we solve problems with each other, or hey, I want to be, He-Man. I know y'all don't know about that. But,
Masters of the universe.
Yeah.
Out of here.
But so how do I get to the top of the castle, and get past Skeletor? All of these things, play, structured play. Even structured play,
Makes you think.
it makes you think, it makes you problem solve. So we're getting rid of this out of the culture, to sacrifice for what, And so again, rest, the kids can't really rest because they haven't exerted enough, especially young boys. They learn
Yeah.
differently than
Oh,
girls.
yeah.
You need to be able to move around. And so even our zero tolerance in school, maybe we dial it back for a little bit and say, hey, boys, or pull them out, to instruct them differently. There's a Maya Angelou school in DC that did this.
Yeah.
And the kids that were on a very, very, very low level to the point where they said that they may have a mental condition or inability to learn, they scored off the charts in one school year because they taught that socially they brought the males and females back together, but instructionally they taught them different, and it looked very different. The young men were able to move around and challenge things and stuff like that. Even they didn't give eye contact a whole lot.
Yeah.
But they learned so much more because they didn't have to make them focus. But young ladies, they sit down and they engage. They were very, what we would call, our traditional learning way.
Right.
And so when you split those, so a lot of these things, we ought to be more in tune when we come into our common areas in our existence.
I think that's true for our spiritual life, where if we don't sit with God and actually spend time with Him, and instead we're just, all right, I got that quote from Proverbs. Okay, I got that little bit. I heard the sermon. I went and then I did the rest of my day, and I never thought about it. I never sat with God in my intentional prayer time or in my study time. Then you're never really sitting with the information that you're getting. You're never sitting with the wisdom. You're never growing and understanding it. So going back to the AI point as well, I think that the more we use Google and AI and these things, we're going to become great at looking for the answer and knowing how to ask the question, but not how to actually understand what the answer is. We'll be able to recite what the little paragraph said verbatim, and that's the same thing happened with Wikipedia and everything else, where students weren't able to actually retain and understand the concepts they were given. They were just able to regurgitate it. That's when we only use it for its surface level part, when we never then go, okay, well, why did it say that I needed that the verse came from Proverbs? Well, now I need to go read all of Proverbs and understand the context of this and what's the history and where is this going? Why was that a part of the Bible in the first place? Okay, now I can say that I know all of this about it, not just, well, that verse says to have rest. Okay.
So I'm reading this book right now. It's a biography of Tim Keller. and it's a really good book by Colin Hanson, super good. But it says in the book, one of the activities that Keller had to do when he was at Bucknell University, he went to this seminar, and the whole group, they sat and they got one verse, and they had to spend 30 minutes digging into and finding insights in that one verse. And so they said after 10 minutes, everybody's like, we got it all. We're done. And the instructor was like, nope, go back. And then they went, did another 10 minutes. Look, we have exhausted every possible detail, fact, info from it. Nope, go back and do it again. And then they went back and they did it again for 10 more minutes. So they did 30 minutes on one verse. And at the end, the instructor was like, okay, so let's talk about these things and what were some of the insights in this. Were any of the powerful, important, deep insights found in the first 10 minutes? No. What about the second 10 minutes? No. It wasn't until that third 10 minutes that the real meat started kind of coming out of the text. And I think that's something with, like you could go to AI, pop in a scripture and say, okay, give me the theme, give me the backstory, give me this, that, and the other, and get all the facts and all the data. And then this is a verb, and this is an adverb, and this is the Greek, whatever. But you haven't dug in and found those insights because 6 seconds, whatever. So I want to kind of pivot, and we're kind of going in there. What does all of this mean spiritually? What does all of this mean to people in their faith walk, to us as pastors and how we do our jobs, but also then those people that we're trying to disciple, we're trying to bring along and deepen in the faith? What is all of this busyness, intentionality, entertainment culture? I mean, all the stuff we've been talking. What impact does it have?
Devotion time. 15 minutes is a start.
Yeah.
We have to incrementally increase that time with God, increase that time focus because of the point you just made. It wasn't until the last 10 minutes of that 30 minutes that it started becoming more, more meaningful, and they started to get to a deeper level of discernment of what they were seeing. So with that being said, when we start and we get the rhythm going, once we dig in more and spend more time, then God can speak more deeply into those things. Then when we get to that hour long, now we're not just doing informational, we're doing how can this transform my life today?
Yeah.
Application. And that's where a lot of people, they feel like, I feel lost. I read the Bible all the time. I read through the Bible 3 times. Yes, have you learned how to apply what you read? Because
Where's the transformation?
Because even though it wasn't written to you, it was absolutely written for you.
Correct.
And to learn how to apply that to change your life, because he wouldn't have given to you any other way, for any other reason.
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing what you were talking about, Jay. I think I may have mentioned on a previous lunch break, but I've been kind of slowly going through this biography on Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And one of the things that Bonhoeffer did that I've been trying to kind of build into some of my prayer days is that he would take his seminarians and require them to spend 30 minutes in the morning just meditating on one verse. And it's interesting because I feel like kind of good exegesis is to say exactly what you said. I said that to the students on Sunday, that the Bible wasn't written to you, but it was written for you. But what Bonhoeffer would do in that verse and for that meditative practice is to say, okay, this is God's word for me in that one verse. And I think that the challenge of
Good filter.
dropping something into ChatGPT and saying, what does this mean, is that it's taking out the interplay between me and the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit saying, this is what I want you to know about the verse itself and the context and whatever. But to know from me, from God to you for today, right? And if you replace the Holy Spirit doing that work with ChatGPT giving you information that may or may not be accurate, then
That's a whole nother thing.
yeah, well, and then we miss
stuff,
out on the opportunity for the Lord to be doing that kind of heart formation that only happens through intentional time and dedication spent doing it. And I say that as somebody who is very guilty of, when busyness creeps up, the first two things that fall are my devotional life slips and my sleep habits slip.
Yep.
And those are two crucial things that it's everything else falls into place if you have those two pieces there.
That's the rhythm.
And
You think about it in the garden, right? God, at the foundation of the world and creation, God walked with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day, and he instituted rest. Like, I mean, he creates the order of everything, and then on day 7, God rests, and then he walks. And it's sleep patterns, rest, recreation, recreation, devotion time. And what are the first 2 things that fall?
Man.
Because the serpent whispers, you don't need that stuff. You can be just like God, right?
see
I mean,
that.
that's the tent. Oh man, isn't that what that is?
That go a sermon for you. Getting back to Genesis. Lord.
Yeah.
Getting back to Genesis. Creation or recreation, all these things, then rest.
Yeah.
That's a series for you right there.
Yeah. Oh, it is 100%.
So it's a balance. Sorry, I was going to call. It's a balance of having the restfulness, the intention of that versus the intention of productivity. I think it's Ecclesiastes 4, and help me out with this, guys. It's better to have like one hand of tranquility than 2 hands that toil and chase after the wind. And so it's not saying to always have the tranquility, to always live in this place of
Right,
I'm
sure,
resting,
100%.
I'm
Yeah.
focusing on the Lord, I have the meditation. That should always be happening in one hand, while the other hand still has to toil. Like we still have to be productive. We still have to make things happen in our lives, and we are creating inside of all that. So it's how can I marry those 2 to happen? And that's, I think, possibly what led, this is my hot take, led to us being like, well, when I sit down to rest, I should also be productive. And that's not what it's trying to say.
Right.
It's
Yes.
just saying that
Yes.
you
I
only
can see
have
that.
so much time. Make sure that you intentionally set aside time that is for rest, for God, for this intention, and then have your productivity too. Both are important. Both have to happen. I think that becomes our spiritual rhythm. So when we do start and end our day with that rest, with that mindfulness, that then leads to, okay, now I have my time of productivity, and then I go back to rest and back to productivity. And when you have the ebb and flow of that, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm doing like it's if I don't eat breakfast in the morning, I know I'm gonna have a bad day. My work is not gonna be as productive because I'm gonna fall asleep and be cranky.
You get hangry.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I ate an egg this morning and I was like, oh, I'm ready to talk.
Yeah.
Let's go. What's different about today? I ate an egg.
Does
this
Amanda
morning.
get hangry?
Yeah.
Or is that too personal? Should we not? We
Yeah,
can't. Okay,
not gonna bring that one up.
Back,
Nope.
back to sorry,
I've learned my
bad.
lesson. Every time I'm here, I say something about Amanda and I get in trouble later.
Trap.
Here's a thought to steer away from Amanda.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for rescuing Ryan out of that
Yeah.
pit.
Ava and I have been having conversations about this and about sometimes the feeling that leisure can feel like, well, this is wasted time.
Yeah.
And I think that it speaks to maybe the idol that our contemporary American culture pushes us toward is an idol of productivity as opposed to the ideal being life with God. And so I can say, especially for the 4 of us who are working in kind of a ministerial role, that it can feel like, well, everything that I'm doing is for the kingdom and for my life with God. And when I'm not at work, I'm doing classes to be a better clergyman and all those things. But that we can kind of idolize that productivity and work for its own sake, as opposed to recognizing that no, the whole end for which I am on earth is to glorify God and enjoy Him. And enjoying Him means enjoying the recreation, enjoying the leisure that He's given me. And when I view that as, well, that's a waste because that's not productive, I'm saying something about the way that my heart is postured toward productivity rather than toward the good gifts that God has given me.
Yeah.
When I think, Ryan, you hit on it really, really well, that intentionality.
Did, yeah.
To intentionally to say, because God, we're called to work.
Yeah.
And I mean, God gave Adam and Eve a task in the garden, work the land. And so He gave them that job to do. And when we work, we're to work as we're working for the Lord, not for men, right?
Yeah.
But then when we rest, we're supposed to rest.
Yeah.
And I think it is that bleed over of the 24/7 phone's always there. I'm always running a project in the background. I find that like I've got to read 14 more books before the middle of October. So I've got to do it. So
many books.
but I'm reading 3 all at the same time right now, and I love that. So I'm weird. But anyway, so like I find myself doing that, going, okay, I'm going to sit down. I've got to read this book.
Yep.
Man, I'm loving this. I'm digging this book. Ooh, but I also have this to do too. Okay, well, so I can't focus on the book like I want because I was doing it yesterday. I was at soccer practice. So I'm watching Caleb at soccer practice and reading a book and responding to a text message from one of the elders all at the same time. And that felt really productive. But I wasn't doing anything with intentionality. And I think that's, so.
Look how busy you were. You did 3 things in
Right.
the same hour.
Correct.
That is how busy I am. So when, again, this whole thing started with, are we busier than we were before? The actual answer is yes, we are, but it's because it's a thing that we made. We made this busyness.
Yeah.
The hours didn't change. The amount of things that we had to do didn't change. It's just how we stacked them into each other.
And the multitasking thing, like you were talking about, that we can't actually do, but we do, right?
That whole thing of being fruitful and multiplying, it's not the same thing. It's not be at work with making children all the time. That's how kind of men tie together. Just be honest. But when you separate the two, I'll just speak for myself. But when you untie those things together, being fruitful is like, okay, the multiplication part comes after being fruitful because there's something into being work, because the work of your hands, enjoy the fruit of your, of your labor. The Bible tells you to do that. However, what is the goal? And everything you do it to glorify the Lord, to honor the Lord. If that work is taking you away from your family, then you got to sacrifice some things for the overtime. Now that's hard to do because when
Sure.
you come from
Oh, yeah.
a background where you
Yeah.
didn't have much and you want more and you want to set up to the 3rd generation, like the Bible also tells us to do as men, make sure that we provide to the 3rd generation. All of those things come to pass. So how do you balance those things? It's not an easy thing. That's why we're talking about it.
That's
right.
But that being fruitful is hard to get away from because it's like, how do I strike that balance, but still be motivated to go after those things that I need to be going after? And so, yeah, this is a good topic today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had all kinds of thoughts. It's just so many things. But we're gonna have to cap it. We're gonna stop it right here. We
can't solve all the world's
we
problems.
can't solve the world's problems, and we can't diagnose all the problems either. And I mean, we could probably talk about this for hours. But I want to kind of end it. But I do want to challenge everybody who's watching. Just like I said last time, if you've got thoughts, put them in the comments. Send us your thoughts. Shoot us text messages. All of us, we have this really easy nomenclature for our email addresses at Northwest. It's first name dot last name at nwcc.net. So send them to stacy.walker or josh.call or ryan.cox or j.rice at nwcc.net. Any of those things. Send meredith.pitts. Anybody on staff. It's really, really simple. First name dot last name at nwcc.net. We'd love to hear. We'd love to hear what you think. Maybe we're way off base.
Yeah.
Because I get that sometimes. We're like, oh, it's easy for you. You're a pastor. You get paid to sit and study, bro. You know what I have to do? I have to commute into Atlanta, blah, 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 blah. So maybe bring it. Come on. I would love to hear, okay, for real people, not us, right? Come on. But you've heard, you've heard those things. We've all heard that. What is it like? Maybe we're wrong.
Or there's things that we're not thinking about because
Correct.
we
Yeah.
have a lot of the similar shared experience.
Sure. Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah, I'd love to hear all of that. I'd love you all to wade in on that. So it's not just a one-sided discussion, us sitting here waxing philosophic. We want your engagement as well. So thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you for spending time with us doing Pastors Roundtable on lunch break. I love these. These are so much fun for me. Can't wait to see you all on Sunday as we continue our series on 1 Thessalonians. It's going to be amazing. I'm sure there's probably announcements. Get the app. Go to the website. Check it all out. Meredith's not here, so I'm going to forget all the stuff, and that's okay. We're glad you're here. Thanks so much for being on lunch break.